Hi, I'm Jeremy Levin, and I'm glad you're here with us today. Welcome to 6 Minutes on Israel from the Aid Coalition.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at a really complex crisis facing a group of artists, Israeli documentary filmmakers.
That's right.
And the material we have describes a situation it's just completely unprecedented. They're caught in this vice grip.
They really are. It's been described as a perfect storm, which I think is the right way to put it.
A perfect storm.
Yeah.
So what does that mean exactly?
It means they're fighting two battles at once. On one hand, you have this intense internal fight just for freedom of expression.
Okay, at home.
And then at the exact same time, they're up against this massive international boycott movement that's trying to shut them out completely.
And the main group caught in the middle of this is the Israeli Documentary Forum, which, for anyone who doesn't know, represents about 400 creators, directors, producers, you name it. And they have this mission. They say their work shows Israel's true face.
Which is such a powerful idea, especially because that face is often very, very critical. They're not making propaganda.
No, they're holding up a mirror.
Sure.
So let's start with that first part of the vice. The internal rock, as it's called.
Right. So even before the current crisis, things were tough. Documentary funding in Israel is, chronically low.
So they're already working on a shoestring.
Exactly. Very limited financial frameworks. That's the phrase used. But now it's gone way beyond that.
How so?
There's a widespread perception that the government is actively working against the cultural sector, that independent artists are seen as a problem.
And that creates a chilling effect, I imagine.
A huge one. And it's not just a feeling, it's becoming physical.
Physical.
Yeah, we're seeing screenings being canceled out of the blue, events being disrupted, and in some cases, actual violence at venues that are just trying to show these films.
Wow.
And the most disturbing part, really, is a claim we saw repeated.
Yeah.
That in some of these incidents where far-right groups have stormed screening halls, the claim is that police have sometimes collaborated with them, or at the very least, helped shut the event down instead of protecting it.
Wait, police collaboration. That's a huge accusation. That changes everything.
It does, because you're no longer just fighting for funding, you're worried about your physical safety.
And whether the state will even protect your right to speak.
Precisely. So that's the pressure cooker at home. But now we have to look at the other side of it, the external hard place.
Right, the international boycott. I saw there was a public letter with, over 1,400 filmmakers and festivals who signed on?
That's right, over 1,400. And they're refusing to work with Israelis just for being Israeli. And it's not just symbolic, it's having real institutional impact.
Give me an example.
Okay, the biggest one is probably IDFA, the big documentary festival in Amsterdam. It's like the Oscars for docs, a huge deal.
I know it. What happened there?
They just straight up rejected accreditation for representatives from major Israeli institutions.
Like who?
The public broadcaster, Khan, the head of Israel's biggest documentary festival, Dok Aviv, even the head of a major film fund. These are pillars of their civil society.
So they're not just boycotting the government, they're cutting off the whole creative community.
That's the key. And it gets very personal. Take the story of a filmmaker named Rona Balafia.
Okay.
Her film was a co-production with the CBC, the Canadian broadcaster. It was about Afghan women, not even about Israel. After October 7th, the CBC just vanished.
Vanished? What do you mean? They pulled funding?
Worse. Complete silence. They didn't even ask for their development money back. They just disappeared from the project. She called it the radioactive effect.
Radioactive? That's a chilling word. The fear of just being associated with her was too high?
So high they were willing to walk away from their own investment. And it trickles down to everything. The Jewish Film Festival in Barcelona couldn't find a venue.
Why not?
Because the venues told them, sure, you can have your festival, but on one condition: no films from Israel.
So on top of all the political pressure, there's this other factor you mentioned, this sort of economic reality, the headache factor.
Yes, and this might be the most insidious part. It's not even about ideology anymore. It's about pragmatism.
What do you mean?
Look at filmmaker Asaf Laid. He made a film about a Holocaust survivor called The Return from the Other Planet. A distributor was interested and then backed out.
And their reason?
They told him it was, and this is a direct quote, not a good time for the audience to relate to Jewish suffering.
That's shocking.
Another distributor was even more blunt. They just said taking on an Israeli documentary right now is a lot of trouble, a lot of hassle, and we just don't want the headache.
So it's not politics, it's just business. It's too risky for the bottom line.
It's pure risk management. And that's maybe harder to fight than an open political stance. How do you argue with a spreadsheet?
So how do they argue against it? What's their response to all this?
Their main point is a simple one. We are not our government. They argue that the film funds and festivals, even with some public money, operate independently.
And that their critical films are proof of that independence.
Exactly. They say their work expands your heart. That's showing self-criticism, showing complexity. That's the sign of a healthy, strong society you should engage with, not shut out.
So the very thing that makes their work valuable, its critical nature, is being used to punish them from both sides.
It's a tragic irony.
Yeah.
And so they're left fighting this battle on two fronts, internal suppression and external exclusion.
Which leads to a really provocative thought for our listeners to take away.
It does. It raises a huge question about double standards in the global cultural world. You see these massive boycotts against Israeli artists because of their government's actions.
Okay.
But then you have cultural institutions and events, even major film awards, that are heavily financed by entities tied to regimes like Qatar or Saudi Arabia, where dissent isn't just criticized, it's brutally punished.
And there's no equivalent boycott movement there.
And none at all. So you have to ask yourself, what criteria are actually being used here? When is a film judged on its own merit, and when is it judged by its passport?
It's a complicated question, but the message from these filmmakers seems pretty simple in the end.
It is. They're just asking people to pay attention, to actually watch what they are doing.
Because seeking out their work is, in itself, a form of resistance against the silence everyone seems to want to impose on them.
You matter, and this work matters. Thank you for listening and for being part of our community. If you enjoyed this episode and want to dive deeper, you can watch the full webinar on our YouTube channel. If our work resonates with you, please consider supporting the Aid Coalition with a donation. Your contributions help us keep creating meaningful content and advancing our mission. Thank you for being with us. I look forward to being with you again in the next episode.